that the principle of usury and extortion is at the root of all financial empires. What does this then tell us about the nature of a general breakdown of such an imperial system? As LaRouche said in his webcast statement, we are indeed in a general breakdown crisis of precisely this type of empire system, a crisis in which we do face inflation and deflation at the same time. But, he said, if you look at my triple curve, you will see exactly what this means. Lyndon LaRouche's unique identification of the triple curve breakdown function today as the inevitable consequence of this empire model is clear in light of Rosa Luxemburg's discussion of the character of breakdown crises. LaRouche's analysis of the triple curve was published in graphic form in the 1990s as a pedagogical visual representation of LaRouche's economic forecast, which he publicized at that time, a forecast which is gaining increasing attention among economists and policymakers today because of its unique accuracy regarding the current crisis. But the concept which it illustrates, the concept of the typical collapse function as it is called, can be found in LaRouche's economic writings going all the way back to the 1960s and 1970s. Take In Defense of Rosa Luxemburg, published in 1973, as an example. In the imperial system, the notion of monetary value replaces the concept of real economic productive value. Debt, assets, money, property titles, all possessing nominal value in the form of paper, begin to overshadow the capital possessing real value as determined by rates of social reproduction for the nation as a whole. As the nominal value accumulates in the hands of those holding the paper, he must either be able to use these debts he holds as security for new debt, or he must convert the paper into cash. As this debt breeds more debt, outside of any growth in the real productive capital in the system, soon a point is reached at which no direct correspondence between the two magnitudes is possible. To judge the potential of a crisis of such a system, we ask the question, whether this mass of nominal wealth represented by the aggregate price of these property titles could in any way be converted into real wealth of the social productive reproductive form. To the extent that this correspondence does not exist, we see that the portion of the total mass of the accumulated debt in such a system, for which there is no corresponding real wealth, represents what should be seen as a body of fictitious debt, or the claims by the holders of that paper to what are, in fact, fictitious assets. This is the most crucial point which serious economists must take into account today. Any attempt to honor those claims will lead to the looting of the productive economy by the parasitical financial class with no legitimate claims to wealth. Only in this, to be seen as a continuous process of looting and collapse, can we find the functional relationship between the hyperinflating financial curve and the deflation in jobs and production. To underline LaRouche's authority as an economic forecaster, economists today should observe that a clear description of this form of typical collapse function was described already in a very clear way by Lyndon LaRouche as early as 1973, in which he already forecasts the possibility of such a breakdown crisis as we are experiencing today.
Since debt itself is a form of self-expanding value, the expansion of the credit monetary system must provide for future augmentation of this fictitious capital. The debt form of fictitious capital pyramids additional fictitious capital, at the same time that new masses of the same are already being generated. As the ratio of fictitious capital to real production increases, an increasing rate of unemployment will tend to be associated with equal rates of credit expansion.
As the triple curve shows, the longer this process continues, the more potential for a dramatic discharge between these inversely accelerating curves is built up. This function of crisis potential embraces the entire system, both financial and productive. The breakdown of any part represents the breakdown of the whole. The whole cannot survive the breakdown of any part. And any attempt to operate according to the old rules of investment will render opposite and destructive results.
The process of rising potential illiquidity in the entire system proceeds in the guise of inflationary prosperity until the relationship between the actual rate of productive accumulation and the total accumulation reaches a critical point. That point, roughly speaking, is the juncture at which further efforts to maintain approximate full employment by credit expansion must cause rising rates of inflation, an inflationary acceleration of the sort which leads towards an early, general collapse of the entire system.
We stand now at the end point of this model. We find ourselves at the inflationary-deflationary stage of a general breakdown crisis of the entire planetary system. As Rosa Luxemburg showed, this sort of crisis is the inevitable outcome of a system of empire. Imperialism leads inevitably to the economic breakdown crisis which we are experiencing today. This ancient model of imperialism has always operated according to precisely this same system. The empire, in attempting to offset the illiquidity of its accumulated fictitious debt, will try to service that debt by means of looting the resources and production of the undeveloped sector, turning the economies of these de facto colonies into merely industries for the production of liquidity to bail out a fictional mass of debt. In so doing, the empire will consume all remaining productive wealth, directing it to the bailout of inflationary debt and away from the necessary reinvestment in the means of reproduction of the source of that material wealth. There is no end to this economic cycle except doom.
We've had a skyrocketing increase in the amount of monetary obligation. We've also had an increase in the financial aggregates. Now what has happened now is we've moved to a period in which these values, as you see, the financial aggregates have begun to fall. This decline in financial aggregates, which has occurred just recently in this last period, is the onset of the breakdown crisis. No. Either we fix this problem, as I described it, or we don't make it as a nation. Came up with this other idea of getting the United States into debt for obligations it didn't owe in order to bail out London, to bail out the international monetary system at the expense of the United States, to loot the United States and its treasury for the benefit of an international monetary cartel. What about bailout? To whom did we bail out? Did we bail out our industries? Did we save the auto industry or put it in an equivalent form, something else besides autos? Did we save the American farmer? Did we save the infrastructure of the cities of the United States and the states? Who did we bail out? We bailed out the London bankers and their New York extension. We don't owe them anything. We just have to have a government that says that. This is our nation, and the law of bankruptcy of our nation is our authority. If I were president, I would end this thing right now. And I'm sure I could get the support of the great majority of the American citizens very quickly, simply by making clear what I intend to do. Put the whole thing in bankruptcy. You guys are going to live. We're not going to kill you like Obama's doing. We're not cutting you off from health care. We're not trying to accelerate your death. We're not trying to get you to kill yourself. You're going to live. You're going to be employed. We're going to rebuild our industries. We're going to cancel this filthy debt we never really owed in the first place. Only some crooked traders or traders kinds of people gave us this kind of debt. It's not real. We don't owe it. We're going to go back to a credit system. And we're going to get some power. Go right to the core of the matter. What is the future of humanity? What is our relationship in the future of humanity? What must it be? And start from there. And I'm confident that that's the only way to go.